Relics. In my previous videos, I mentioned about raising characters and using your resources, but in this video, I'm gonna talk about the grind for relics. Relic grinding is the final step you do when building up a character. The first thing you do is level them up along with their light cone. Doing these would give your character more base stats, which is the stat that's being used for when you get buffs like attack percent. The more base stats you have, the more stats you get from percentage buffs. After you're done with levels and light cone, you move on to the traces. This is where you get your multipliers for your skills. The higher the levels, the more the multiplier and whatnot. Doing all these can be a bit resource intensive for some people, which is why you should be using the middle tab of the assignments, by the way. But this is all guaranteed progression on building up your character, which is why it's heavily recommended to completely finish these steps before moving on to relics. That being said, getting relics, especially good quality ones, are equally as important as levels and traces. Relic is what defines your character build. It can make the difference between a clear and a fail. But if it's so important, why is it not prioritized over levels and traces? Well, because the progress of relic grinding is not guaranteed. If you have a character at level 70 with level 8 traces and subpar relics, spending 1000 stamina on levels and traces will for sure get you an upgrade, while spending it on relics has a chance to not give you anything aside fodder for relic EXP. Now, when talking about this, there's a common response that I tend to get. Well, I'm not a min-maxer, so I don't care for the little bit of trace levels. To this I say, yes you are. Because there's really only two reasons for you to refuse maxing out levels and or traces. The first reason is you feel like you're done with the character and you'd want to start with the next one. Technically this is a more valid reason, but still not a good idea in my opinion, because it is just better to be completely done with one character before moving on to the next one, rather than spreading your resource out where you'll end up having a bunch of non-finished builds. The other reason is you're farming relics. What do you farm relics for? To improve your character. In which case, finishing their levels and traces beforehand is better because it's guaranteed upgrades compared to relic farming. Another response I tend to hear about farming traces is that it takes too long and the increase isn't even worth it. Okay, so you'd rather spend stamina on something that only has a chance to improve your build rather than something that will definitely improve your build. And it's not like you should only do one or the other, because after you're done with your traces, you can just freely farm relics to your heart's content. Like I said in the other video, which you guys should watch after this one, there's a definitive end to farming traces that is significantly more achievable compared to farming relics. Also real quick, I just want to point this out. There was a talk I saw about traces versus relic farming, and the guy who's on the relic farming side said, "Oh, you must be high or something. Farming relics does not take as long as farming traces, if you're lucky." Let's be for real with ourselves. Y'all prefer farming relics because it's more fun. It's more fun to see 5 rolls on crit damage. It's more fun to see 5 rolls on speed. It's more fun to see that you finally got the god piece to complete your build, even though some builds I see literally only hinges on 1 or 2 god pieces, but that's aside the point. It's like how we were told to finish our veggies first before having dessert. You don't want to eat the carrots, you just want the ice cream, which to be fair, same, but I do my traces. Once again, let me make it clear, I'm not saying you shouldn't farm relics ever. I'm saying that you should only start after you're completely done with levels and traces. Cause most of the time, you can just get by with whatever scraps you have flying around. Now, you can say that they'll perform worse with scraps, but if you're not gonna max out phases and levels, they're gonna perform worse regardless. Anyway, I hope that cleared things up about why relics should be the last thing to farm for when building a character. If you still have any questions, feel free to comment down below. But now, let's actually talk about when you do reach this point, or when you decide to skip to this point. One thing I want to let people know about relic farming, this mostly applies to newer players or if you don't have a large stash of relics, do not trash your old pieces. Let me explain. I don't mean that you should hoard, by the way. Don't get it twisted. When you grind relics, you'll eventually get an upgrade, right? When starting out, chances are this will be all you have. Let's say your DPS already has 4 pieces of relics while your supports has nothing. Let's say you finally got an upgrade for your DPS. When you put that new piece on your DPS, you give the old one to your other characters. You do this enough times, eventually your entire team will have their own relics. Again, this is mostly for the newer players, cause old players would have fully geared out teams anyway. After this point, if you do find another upgrade again, I'd still keep the old piece around for now. Think of it as a starter kit for when you work on your next team. But if you're new, you shouldn't be using them yet. When you just started grinding for relics, or maybe when there's a new set that just came out, one tip I want to give y'all is to not be greedy, especially for newer players. If you just started relic farming, let's say all your characters are on purple relics, the first gold relic you get, just use it. Especially if it's a head or a hand piece. If it's the other pieces, maybe you could wait till you get the right main stat, but that's it. Don't even try to look for the substats. Do this for all your pieces. Do this for the next character, do this for your entire team, then, and only then after you're done with all that, you can start looking at the subs. And even at this point, you still shouldn't be too greedy. If you started from having pieces with 0 usable subs, just take whatever piece that gives you more. If you found a piece with 1 good subs, and the one you have has 0, then just use it. Side note. At this point of the game, if you're short on relic EXP, yes, you can keep them at level 12 to save resources for now, but don't hoard them in the long game. Another thing I would do if I'm starting out is to put everyone on speed boots. What I noticed when I started over was that in some fights, enemies would demolish my team before I even get a chance to move. Or even worse, they would lap my team. So having some speed helps with that. Those were just things I'd keep in mind about starting out. What about when I actually farm relics? By the way, just to put it out there, at this point I'm assuming you already hit the Trailblaze level that gives you guaranteed gold relics when farming the cavern. If you haven't reached this point yet, do not farm relics from cavern at all. At first, you can consider efficiency as a factor for where you should be farming, as in, you'd want whatever you get from the cavern to be useful. But later down the line, especially at endgame, you farm where you can get the exact sets that you need. Efficiency should be a second factor. Like, if you need to run some wacky eagle build, then you just hit the eagle cavern. Doesn't matter if you're using an ice DPS or not. At the same time, don't force yourself to be using an ice DPS. Efficiency should only be considered if your choice of character, usually your DPS, actually has multiple options to run. For example, when farming for Sele, even though the Quantum set is still slightly better than Scholar, at least I'm pretty sure it still is, farming Scholar allows you to double dip into farming Sacerdos for her supports as well. When farming for someone like Aventurine, if you're using him with Acheron, you can just farm Salsodo for them both. If you're using him with Facial, you can farm Duran for them both. Usually after you've done a lot of farming, I see players tend to be confused about how to pick or sort out the relics. They can't decide what to use, what to keep, what to throw away. Truth be told, there isn't a single straight answer for this. It really is just dependent per account. Me personally, the more farming I do, the more I get the feel for what I want in my account. But there are obvious pointers such as double crit pieces, high speed pieces. There are certain specific pieces that I would like to look out for, especially nowadays. Speed boots with crit damage, effect hit rate bodies with speed, and what might be an obvious one, energy rope with speed. By the way, in the yearly game, you should not trash any energy ropes, regardless of their substats. Your supports live and die by the energy ropes. I've seen way too many accounts not able to work well because they trashed all of their energy ropes due to them not having good subs, even though they literally don't have anything else. I cannot stress this point enough. Farming relics can be fun, but it can also be stressful. Y'all ever had this feeling? You're done with the levels, you maxed out your traces, you farm relics every day, you do as much as you can, but no matter how long you grind, there's always someone with a better build. No matter how hard you try, you're always told you're not good enough. You get back to it, you try to make progress, but then someone comes and says that what you're doing amounts to nothing. Well, I have. It kinda sucks to be honest, but I know that if I let it get to me, it'll just make things worse. So I try to shrug it off and just focus on the end goal. I'm saying this mostly for myself, but if there's anyone that needs to hear it too, the way things are right now, it can be better, it will be better, just keep it up. And that's about it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, comment down your thoughts, feedbacks are greatly appreciated and I'll be reading through them. If you want to see more of me, consider hitting the subscribe button, it's free. I'll be doing more of these Yap videos in the future, even for other games. Now take a sip of water and have a good day.